are celebrating the second episode of GeoTV here in Stockholm, Sweden. Welcome to the second episode of GeoTV, your source for all things geothermal. Today we will start in Taipei at the site of the second Taiwan International Geothermal Conference, hosted by the Ministry of Economic Affairs. Geothermal has gained strong governmental support in Taiwan, with a now goal of putting 6 gigawatts of geothermal capacity by 2050. Our own Claire Lai was at the conference talking to Anne Robertson-Tate about the goals of Taiwan. Let's hear what they said.
If we can accelerate the timeline, all the better for all of us. But as far as incentives go, we see in Taiwan there's excellent feed-in tariff for the power. It's somewhere between, say, 16 and 20 US cents per kilowatt hour, which is a very attractive rate for geothermal. In fact, we don't get that in the United States, just to let you know. Now, we need to have specific incentives in place. And the one that I really like, and there's a reason I like it, is because it's very effective at accelerating the pace of development, is cost share drilling. This comes usually from governments, but it's a way to explore, drill your first very deep, full diameter wells and share the risk of that with the government. And this has happened in many countries, but is particularly USA and Japan. It's been very successful. And these are countries that have been doing geothermal for decades, So as long as GeothermEx has been in business. So that kind of drilling can really help. But there are other things that can be done too. And, there's things like tax credits that we have in the US. But all of these depend on policy. So my message to the people of Taiwan is to create the policy that enables the right incentives to be given, more than a feed-in tariff. It has to be something technical. And that's why I go for cost share drilling of the first deep exploratory wells.
Now, let's turn to the United States, where technological innovation and political support could significantly boost geothermal capacity. Experts claim that geothermal could account for 10% of the US electricity generation by 2050. Next up is a segment from our dear Christina, who recently traveled to Washington, D.C. to cover the 2024 Geothermal Capitol Hill Day. This event, organized by Geothermal Rising, educates policymakers on the significant role that geothermal energy could play in our sustainable future. Let's see what Christina's week in Washington was about.
Sure have gotten our steps in, haven't we?
Oh, many. I think I'm 10,000 or 15,000 per day.
Yeah. What we're so excited about is the amount of enthusiasm we've received with all of these meetings from all corners of the political spectrum. It's been really exciting. One of the things is reforming the permitting process in the United States to streamline it, to make it faster for geothermal developers. Right now, the permitting process causes geothermal projects to take between 6 to 10 years to be developed. The permitting changes that we are proposing and have a lot of strong support for will reduce that to 4 to 6 years. So huge improvements for the geothermal industry.
As Brian and I often say, the geothermal industry as a whole doesn't have a technology problem. The technology's been in existence for decades. We have a policy problem, and it's a matter of communicating our issue sets and our pain points directly to members of Congress and their staff. Particularly for this industry in general is we get not getting too far in the technical weeds. You need to break this stuff down to an elementary level, and you really need to figure out the best ways to communicate, what our strategies are and what our asks are of these policymakers.
We need more boots on the ground, not just in Washington, D.C. and state and provincial capitals in North America, but also in other countries. We need more geothermal folks going to their capitals and talking to their policymakers. And there's really great effort happening in the European Commission with EJEC, and we need to make sure that that's happening in other countries as well.
So, I've been in the industry for a long time, almost 17 years, I think. And it used to be that no one knew what geothermal was. No one talked about geothermal. It was always, solar or wind, our really visible cousins, siblings, whatever you want to call them, in the renewable energy space. But geothermal has always just kind of been this quiet workhorse in the background, getting it done. And now people are figuring it out, and they're really excited about geothermal. And if we look at the GEO Act in the Senate, it has both Democratic and Republican support. And even talking in some of our meetings today, there's more and more senators who said that they're willing to sign on and support it. So it's a really good sign and really exciting for us to see.
You have to know your numbers. It needs to be crisp, and you need to have a story to tell. If you can then give a case so that they understand from their situation, well, that's when it actually gets sweet. So it's all about pitching about the thing you love the most. So if I have one thing to say, go train your geothermal pitch, because we're going to need it.
Thank you, Christina, for showing us true geothermal advocacy in action.
While the geothermal industry is growing, we could grow even quicker if we were good at recruiting and finding the right talents. It's interesting to see how the other renewables do it, and especially what can we get and learn from the oil and gas industry. The race to recruit skilled, knowledgeable geothermal employees is on, and the similarities between technologies and methods used in geothermal and oil and gas development have not gone unnoticed. A workforce of over 300,000 that exists today already possesses skills and expertise necessary for geothermal power development. What talents is the industry looking for? Where can we find them? Are they in the oil and gas industry? And are they willing to collaborate with us? Many questions to be answered. Luckily for you, we have gathered the experts to do that.
Recruiting for the geothermal industry has its hurdles. A big one is that many people just aren't as aware of geothermal as they are of oil and gas. We also need specialized knowledge in areas like geology and renewable energy systems, which narrows down the candidate pool a bit further. Plus, most conventional geothermal resources are often in specific locations which might not quite match where the potential candidates live. There are plenty of skills from the oil and gas industry that are perfect for geothermal. Drilling techniques, reservoir management, and subsurface geology are all relevant. Experience in well logging, hydraulic fracturing, and fluid dynamics is also very useful. The geothermal sector can really benefit from the project management experience and safety protocols that oil and gas professionals bring with them. While many skills do transfer, there are a few gaps to fill. Oil and gas pros might need some extra training in renewable energy principles, or environmental assessments, or even geothermal specific technologies. Understanding the thermal properties of geothermal reservoirs and how to integrate geothermal energy into power grids is also key. Targeted training programs can help build these gaps and make that transition smoother. Many oil and gas professionals are drawn to geothermal because they want to contribute to renewable energy solutions. Geothermal also offers opportunities for career growth and innovation in a rapidly growing field. Plus, the long-term potential and stability of renewable energy projects are appealing for those looking for secure and impactful careers. We also see major oil and gas service companies creating new energy or sustainable energy teams, which provide unique internal career opportunities that support the geothermal industry. My role at Expro is a perfect example of this. And collaboration, it's key between oil and gas and geothermal, and it's definitely fueling the industry's momentum. These partnerships leverage the expertise, technology, and infrastructure of the oil and gas industry to push geothermal projects forward. Joint ventures and research initiatives drive innovation. They cut costs and they speed up project timelines. This collaboration is crucial for scaling up geothermal energy production and making it a bigger part of our overall energy mix, which is great for the industry's growth and sustainability.
Well, we already see a new group of people entering the geothermal sector, whether they're interested in policy around geothermal, whether they're interested in climate change or environmental issues, they're coming into the sector. And this is a great time for people to join geothermal. So I would say that, in the next 5 or 10 years, we'll probably see more oil and gas people entering the sector, but it's going to take a while. And as we become more visible, we'll get more people coming into the sector. It's already happening, and it's going to happen more and more as time goes on, in my opinion. People who are graduating from university now, whether at the bachelor's, master's, PhD level, they are very interested in geothermal energy and clean energy in general. But geoscientists and engineers are really being drawn to geothermal energy. So we don't see that there's a lack of people who are, to be available for geothermal. Our experience, and we've been hiring, both from right out of university, people right coming out of university, and people from within the oil and gas sector as well, since our parent company is SLB, and lots of folks doing that. I think they are very interested in joining the geothermal industry for lots of personal reasons and environmental reasons and climate change reasons. So I hope that oil and gas people will maybe forego a little bit of the salary to get into a cleaner industry. And that is happening. We've had interviewees tell us, look, we know we could make more money somewhere else, but we're really interested in geothermal energy. So that would be great. And with respect to experienced professionals, these are needed too. And if they're making a shift to geothermal from another industry, they have lots to offer to the geothermal sector. So we're pretty bullish on people coming into the sector now, since it's more visible and more on everybody's mind that we need clean, firm energy, and geothermal is it. The ones who come to us and express their interest in geothermal, they're almost always, people that we want to have. And we also identify skill sets that we can use and leverage that are used routinely in oil and gas, but not so much in geothermal. So we're looking for those skills within our big company, which is composed mainly of people working in oil and gas, although the new energy division in SLB is growing fast. So, but people come to us, and when they express an interest, we immediately talk to them, and if it looks like a good fit, they're in.
One of the questions that quite often I get is, how do I move into geothermal if I'm in oil and gas, or if I'm studying a specific oil and gas syllabus, right? And the easy answer to that is, you get education that is extracurricular if it's not part of the program, or you start looking into projects and programs that actually have geothermal specific materials. And there's no such thing as such a oil engineer or a gas engineer unless that's your specialty. And that is the beauty of the synergies, that once you understand subsurface, it's very easily moldable. You can move from geothermal to oil and gas, or vice versa. And this kind of collaboration is much needed in the world. As a matter of fact, if you think of it on a yearly basis, there's about 70,000 wells being drilled in oil and gas, and 1,500 in geothermal, which hopefully will exponentially grow through the coming years. The more we talk to each other, the more we collaborate, the more we start creating these events together, I think is going to be crucial in terms of understanding what's out there, because there is technologies out there that can already be applied, but sometimes we just don't know about it. And it can be as trivial as that. And that extends into, okay, let's work together for the technical innovation, for research and development, and how do we make these economic models work. So we're in it together. I'm excited for what's about to come, and I'm privileged and honored to be part of this energy, this wave, and looking forward to the geothermal decade.
But what can we as an industry actually do to help with this transition? We sat down with Vanessa Robertson from Geothermal Rising to talk about how they handle the challenges and the opportunities in the geothermal sector.
At Geothermal Rising, we see the need to address the workforce challenges and opportunities at various stages, starting with the need for an increase in general awareness of geothermal energy and the variety of exciting and well-paying jobs it provides. We are currently doing this through our bilingual, interactive, traveling geothermal museum exhibit that can reach a broader and more diverse audience, especially the younger generation. It's important to recognize that not everyone wants to or has the ability to pursue a 4 to 8 year undergraduate and graduate degree program. We therefore are working to clearly lay out a path that allows students to understand the options available, such as trade and apprenticeship programs. Drillers and pipe fitters are in high demand and play a critical role in the geothermal industry. If students do choose to enroll at the university level, Geothermal Rising has a growing network of student members and established student sections that not only provides them with opportunities to participate in industry-related educational and outreach initiatives, but also helps them further develop professional and core skills that will be critical as they move into entry-level positions. We are currently seeing an increased interest in geothermal from petroleum and gas academic programs across the US and Canada, and are excited to focus our attention and resources to further encourage students to pursue a career in geothermal. We are also seeing the clear opportunity in the transition of skilled workers from oil and gas to geothermal, and are actively working with our oil and gas partners to identify any gaps and areas for cross-training. Knowing that there is a workforce of over 300,000 with the required expertise to further grow and expand geothermal power, heating, and cooling development is very exciting. In general, though, whether it's outreach to middle school students or upskilling current oil and gas and geothermal employees, Geothermal Rising and our education and outreach initiatives will be prioritizing efforts to diversify the workforce so it can represent the broad spectrum of backgrounds, ethnicities, and experiences that are critical for not only the success of the industry as a whole, but for the long-term stability of the companies themselves. Geothermal Rising is beyond excited about the current advancements and surge in geothermal technologies and startup companies, of which over 50 have been founded in recent years. We are ready to help drive the growth for a stable and skilled workforce that will make that possible.
Did you know that in the past 100 years, the Earth's temperature has gone up by 1.2 degrees Celsius? What do we think about that? That's right. But don't worry, there are ways we can help.
Turn off the lights when you're not using them. Recycle. Eat less meat and tell your family and friends about renewable energy.
What I was pretty good at doing was helping the mad scientist with the good idea turn it into a business. One day, I had some of my own ideas. This Eavor thing was one of them.
And we said, that's a very dumb idea. Geothermal was such a stagnant industry. People had looked at closed loop years before when it wasn't economic and had written it off and didn't want to re-look at it.
There's people writing papers and social media posts and guaranteeing that closed loop geothermal will never work.
But we basically shared this vision of trying to make geothermal scalable, and that vision never changed.
We were weeks away from the end of the runway, and our employees knew it, and they stayed anyway.
The more people that tell us we're doing it the wrong way, that pushes them on to go even farther.
This could actually solve the energy crisis.
Where did the Eavor story begin?
Heating and cooling accounts for 50% of Europe's energy mix, and fossil fuel accounts for 70% of that. As the demand increases to reduce the dependency on fossil fuels, oil and gas, so does the interest for geothermal energy. We recently sat down with Marta Ros Karlsdottir, Managing Director at Baseload Power Iceland, to gain insights on what Europe can learn from Iceland's expertise.
Iceland has vast geothermal resources, and we are working a lot with high temperature resources that are, of course, located in Iceland because we are a volcanic island. But in Europe, we have geothermal resources, but usually at lower temperatures. And here in Iceland, we have also been utilizing these low temperature resources for many decades. And that's exactly for heating purposes. So we heat 90% of our houses with geothermal energy, and most of that comes from low temperature areas, just as the areas that we can find in Europe. I think Iceland has a lot to teach Europe when it comes to utilizing geothermal resources. So our focus on utilizing geothermal resources for heating is based on these low temperature resources. And we have built district heating systems, we've operated them for many decades, and we have such a great experience, hands-on experience on how geothermal can really make a difference in energy security, in economic energy, and of course in environmental friendly energy resources. In some cases, you already have the infrastructure needed for a geothermal system because in many locations you have a district heating system that is maybe fired by an oil burner or an electric furnace that is actually heating up water to send to the different homes and businesses. You can actually replace that with geothermal hot water directly from the ground. So that's how, there's like a beautiful connection of how to utilize geothermal resources in an already existing infrastructure.
Another role model when it comes to Geoheat application is New Zealand. Let's have a look on how their strategy is honoring Maori cultural ties and future technological innovations.
What I like about Geoheat is that you don't need to have the high heat temperatures to be able to utilize heat. There's technology out there that can let you use just the ambient ground conditions, or even drilling a little bit further to 40 degrees or 60 degree temperatures, and you can utilize that for all sorts of uses. We currently in New Zealand have one glass house that's based here in Taupo alongside a geothermal field, and they are utilizing high temperatures, which they're cooling down to run through their glass houses to keep the conditions warm and appropriate growing conditions. We don't need 220 degrees going in for a glasshouse operations. The Netherlands are doing it at 80 degrees and their operating costs circulating, or the operating temperatures circulating through the inside of the grow houses are between 60 and 70 degrees. So they also cool them down a little bit. Here in New Zealand, we're quite unique that we have some places outside of the Taupo volcanic zone or inside the Taupo volcanic zone that we can reach 70, 80, 90 degrees very, very shallowly and very easy. This is one of the larger costs associated with using geothermal, is having to drill for it. The other component, or the other, I think, space where Geoheat can be very useful for New Zealand's energy systems going forward is around district heating or shared heat spaces. So smart city planning. If you've got a swimming pool that needs to be heated, tapped down, and you've got ground temperatures. But also, if you actually think smartly and you want to put, say, like they do in North America, swimming pool and an ice skating rink together, then you've got thermal share within the building as well as the geothermal stable temperatures at depth. In terms of Geoheat, I want to say it's almost limitless. I'm not going to say it's limitless because there are, particularly in these low temperature resources, there's a lot we need to learn about the sustainability of their uses, and because we don't want to deplete the water or the temperature or the recharge. So I'll go with almost limitless. There's a lot of energy within our ground, both high and low temperature energy, that can be used for all sorts of end users. So in New Zealand, because we've got such a great history of using geothermal systems, that we don't think of geothermal anywhere outside of the Taupo volcanic zone or Northland. And this is actually quite a big barrier in terms of getting people to smartly use energy. They don't even think that there's heat in the ground to use, so it's not really in their repertoire of where their energy comes from. And I think as we're going forward and transitioning to renewable and green energy sources, it should be. And so raising awareness that heat is outside of the high temperature systems and heat is available everywhere. You just need to learn more about it or tap into it. It's there. Getting that message out to people is probably one of our biggest barriers at the moment in terms of actually utilising the geothermal resources to the fullest of their potential.
One of the areas that we need to work on is around the communication, and in particular people's understanding. So people understand the higher temperature resources, and that's quite well understood in New Zealand, particularly if you're in the Bay of Plenty or in Tapa Volcanic Zone. But this whole question around geothermal being widely available across New Zealand is not well understood. And so it's like our high temperature understanding actually limits our understanding and uptake of our lower temperature geothermal resources and our ambient temperature resources. And a lot of that is to do with communication. And so if we can put effort into communication, then basically we stand a good opportunity for enhancing the uptake and seeing geothermal more widely used in New Zealand. Near Taupo there's a greenhouse which is 12 hectares in size and has been using geothermal energy for a number of years. The greenhouse grows capsicums and tomatoes, and the geothermal part of the operation is essential for their growing conditions. They are using somewhere up to 24 megawatts of geothermal heat to supply the greenhouse, and in this instance they are using higher temperature geothermal, so the incoming temperature is about 200 degrees Celsius, and then in their storage tanks it's about 90 Celsius, and then that's fed around the greenhouse to heat the greenhouse.
Thank you to our friends from New Zealand for sharing your stories with us. As if that isn't enough, we now turn to our friends at ThinkGeoEnergy for more headlines in the world of geothermal. Over to you, Alex.
Thank you, Gabriela. ThinkGeoEnergy is proud to provide you this selection of the latest geothermal news. Of course, for always up-to-date information and news, check our website thinkgeoenergy.com or our LinkedIn page. Earlier this year, GA Drilling has announced the first closure of a $15 million financing to help accelerate the delivery of deep geothermal energy. The investment fuels the commercialization of geothermal technologies to scale the renewable energy source as a real option to replace fossil fuels for baseload power.
Well, as an investor in geothermal, it's exciting to see that over the past few months, the sentiment has changed. We've moved from it being some sort of exciting thing in the future to real investor FOMO, fear of missing out. Investors are excited about the opportunity. They see the mathematics of the amount of heat and electricity that's needed in the space and the amount of technology that's now enabling deep geothermal. And as an investor in GA Drilling, I'm excited to see this investment and the projects that are coming into fruition right now. The US government has outlined basically a plan for how geothermal will be 10% of the energy mix by 2050. And with that, the tectonic plates in the investor space are moving, and it's a great, exciting time for a lot of people that have been patient. There's been R&D for several decades, and now it's happening.
Indonesia is aiming to significantly boost its geothermal power generation capacity. By 2035, the goal is to reach a total capacity of around 9,300 megawatts, with an estimated investment of around $29 billion. Currently, the country's geothermal capacity stands around 2,400 megawatts. Over the next decade, Indonesia plans to increase its renewable energy capacity and power plants, aligning with the government's broader goal of adding around 40,000 of power generation capacity, half of which is planned to be from renewable energy sources.
So we are still working together. So I think we're still positive on working with the government to improve the regulations. At the same time, INAGA also work together with all stakeholders on improving the cost efficiency in geothermal development. So if we look at the current INAGA structure, the membership of INAGA is not only consists of the geothermal developer. It's not exclusive to geothermal developers, but it's more inclusive now. So INAGA has broadened the membership to include also the technology providers, the area of the power plant and the area of well services. Of course, with the target that we can improve the cost efficiency in geothermal development, starting from the subsurface, well targeting, how we improve the way we understand about the resource, about the reservoir characterization, so that we can improve the way we do the well targeting, so that we can increase the chance of success on drilling exploration and also drilling development. So we also work together. Now our members also include the technology provider for the power plant, so that we can, at the same time of increasing the local content, so we also aim to improve the efficiency of the power plant. So it's not only reduce the steam consumption to produce the same megawatt production, but also this power plant should be more flexible to accommodate various type of geothermal resource, because we know that the geothermal resources vary from the marginal one, the low enthalpy, the medium enthalpy, to the high enthalpy. So I think with those improvements, so we can still expect that we can reduce the geothermal development cost, but at the same time, of course, if from the regulatory perspective, if there is an improvement on the regulations in Indonesia in geothermal sectors, that's also will improve the commerciality of geothermal. And at the end, of course, when the commerciality of the geothermal improve, then the enthusiasm of the people, of the investors will also increase, and we can meet the government target on geothermal development in Indonesia. Let's say the first milestone is 2030, which is 5,500 megawatt in total installed capacity.
That's all from the latest news in the world of geothermal. Back to you, Gabriela.
Thank you, Alex, for keeping us updated, and thank you to all of our contributors for sharing your stories with us. Thank you also to Ormat for sponsoring this episode. Be sure to join us next time for more stories within the world of geothermal. Until then, I'm Gabriela, signing up for GeoTV, and remember, the Earth has power. Let's switch it on.